بسم, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أفتتح الثناء بحمدك، وأنت مسدد للصواب بمنك، وأيقنت أنك أنت أرحم الراحمين في موضع العفو والرحمة، وأشد المعاقبين في موضع النكال والنقمة، وأعظم المتجبرين في موضع الكبرياء والعظمة. اللهم أذنت لي في دعائك ومسألتك، فاسمع يا سميع مدحتي، وأجب يا رحيم دعوتي، وأقل يا غفور عثرتي. فكم يا إلهي من كربة قد فرجتها، وهموم قد كشفتها، وعثرة قد أقلتها، ورحمة قد نشرتها، وحلقة بلاء قد فككتها. الحمد لله الذي لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا، ولم يكن له شريك في الملك، ولم يكن له ولي من الذل، وكبره تكبيرا. الحمد لله بجميع محامده كلها، على جميع نعمه كلها. الحمد لله الذي لا مضاد له في ملكه، ولا منازع له في أمره. الحمد لله الذي لا شريك له في خلقه، ولا شبيه له في عظمته. الحمد لله الفاشي في الخلق أمره وحمده، الظاهر بالكرم مجده، الباسط بالجود يداه، الذي لا تنقص خزائنه ولا تزيده كثرة العطاء إلا جودا وكرما. إنه هو العزيز الوهاب. اللهم إني أسألك قليلا من كثير، مع حاجة بي إليه عظيمة، وغناك عنه قديم، وهو عندي كثير، وهو عليك سهل يسير. اللهم إنا عفوك عن ذنبي، وتجاوزك عن خطيئتي، وصفحك عن ظلمي، وسترك على قبيح عملي، وحلمك عن كثير جرمي، عندما كان من خطئي وعمدي. أطمعني في أن أسألك ما لا أستوجبه منك الذي رزقتني من رحمتك وأريتني من قدرتك وعرفتني من إجابتك، فصرت أدعوك آمنا وأسألك مستأنسا، لا خائفا ولا وجلا، مدلا عليك فيما قصدت فيه إليك. فإن أبطأ عني عتبت بجهلي عليك، ولعل الذي أبطأ عني هو خير لي لعلمك بعاقبة الأمور. فلم أرى مولا كريما أصبر على عبد لئيم منك علي يا رب. إنك تدعوني فأولي عنك، وتتحبب إلي فأتبغض إليك، وتتودد إلي فلا أقبل منك، كأن لي التطول عليك، فلم يمنعك ذلك من الرحمة لي والإحسان إلي والتفضل علي بجودك وكرمك. فارحم عبدك الجاهل وجد عليه بفضل إحسانك، إنك جواد كريم. الحمد لله مالك الملك مجري الفلك مسخر الرياح فالق الإصباح، ديان الدين رب العالمين. الحمد لله على حلمه بعد علمه، والحمد لله على عفوه بعد قدرته، والحمد لله على طول أناته في غضبه، وهو قادر على ما يريد. الحمد لله خالق الخلق باسط الرزق فالق الإصباح ذي الجلال والإكرام والفضل والإنعام، الذي بعد فلا يرى وقرب فشهد النجوى تبارك وتعالى. الحمد لله الذي ليس له منازع يعادله، ولا شبيه يشاكله، ولا ظهير يعاضده. قهر بعزته الأعزاء، وتواضع لعظمته العظماء، فبلغ بقدرته ما يشاء. الحمد لله الذي يجيبني حين أناديه، ويستر علي كل عورة وأنا أعصيه، ويعظم النعمة علي فلا أجازيه. فكم من موهبة هنيئة قد أعطاني، وعظيمة مخوفة قد كفاني، وبهجة مغنقة قد أراني، فأثني عليه حامدا الحمد لله، وأذكره مسبحا سبحان الله. الحمد لله الذي لا يهتك حجابه، ولا يغلق بابه، ولا يرد سائله، ولا يخيب آمله. الحمد لله الذي يؤمن الخائفين وينجي الصالحين ويرفع المستضعفين ويضع المستكبرين ويهلك ملوكا ويستخلف آخرين. الحمد لله قاسم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مدرك الهاربين نكال الظالمين صريخ المستصرخين موضع حاجات الطالبين معتمد المؤمنين. الحمد لله الذي من خشيته ترعد السماء وسكانها وترجف الأرض وعمارها وتموج البحار ومن يسبح في غمراتها. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. الحمد لله الذي يخلق ولم يخلق ويرزق ولا يرزق ويطعم ولا يطعم ويميت الأحياء ويحيي الموتى وهو حي لا يموت بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير. اللهم صل على محمد عبدك ورسولك وأمينك وصفيك وحبيبك وخيارتك من خلقك وحافظ سرك ومبلغ رسالاتك أفضل وأحسن وأجمل وأكمل وأزكى وأنمى وأطيب وأطهر وأسنى وأكثر ما صليت وباركت وترحمت وتحننت وسلمت على أحد من عبادك وأنبيائك ورسلك وصفوتك وأهل الكرامة عليك من خلقك. اللهم وصل على علي أمير المؤمنين ووصي رسول رب العالمين عبدك ووليك وأخي رسولك وحجتك على خلقك وآيتك الكبرى والنبأ العظيم. وصل على الصديقة الطاهرة فاطمة الزهراء سيدة نساء العالمين. وصل على سبطي الرحمة وإمامي الهدى الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة. وصل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي والخلف الهادي المهدي حججك على عبادك وأمنائك في بلادك صلاة كثيرة دائمة. اللهم وصل على ولي أمرك القائم المؤمل والعدل المنتظر وحفه بملائكتك المقربين، وأيده بروح القدس يا رب العالمين. اللهم اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك. استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله. مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له. أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا، يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك، حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله، وتذل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملناه، وما قصرنا عنه فبلغناه. اللهم المم به شعثنا، واشعب به صدعنا، وارتق به فتقنا، وكثر به قلتنا، وأعزز به ذلتنا، وأغن به عائلنا، واقض به عن مغرمنا، واجبر به فقرنا، وسد به خلتنا، ويسر به عسرنا، وبيض به وجوهنا، وفك به أسرنا، وأنجح به طلبتنا، وأنجز به مواعيدنا، واستجب به دعوتنا، واعطنا به سؤلنا، وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا، واعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشفي به صدورنا، وأذهب به غيظ قلوبنا، واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق. آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله، وغيبة ولينا، وكثرة عدونا، وقلة عددنا، وشدة الفتن بنا، وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآله، وأعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله، وبضر تكشفه، ونصر تعزه، وسلطان حق تظهره، ورحمة منك تجللناها، وعافية منك تلبسناها برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Brothers and sisters, please let's invite Sayyid Abbas with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. May Allah accept from you the acts of worship, the nights of Qadr, the nights of destiny. And today we had the martyrdom of Imam Ali alayhi salam. May Allah send inshallah his condolences upon all the mu'mineen and believers inshallah. Imam Ali alayhi salam, in such a day when he was buried, Imam Hassan alayhi salam took different places, possibilities for Imam Ali alayhi salam to be buried. And the reason for this was that people would not know where Imam Ali alayhi salam was buried. Why? Because there was still a danger for his body. And we have that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam came and showed us where Imam Ali alayhi salam was buried. So he had a hidden grave for a period of time. Turn up the volume a little. So we had a hidden grave of Imam Ali alayhi salam, and this shows you the madhlumiyat and oppression of Imam Ali alayhi salam. Because however kind he is, however great he is, Ali means, great, he is also oppressed. And sometimes we really can't believe that someone like Imam Ali, which was the Amir at that time, his place of burial would have to be hidden from everyone. And that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam would show us where he is. So he's very kind, Imam Ali. He's very oppressed, and he has a very high position. Hopefully when we talk about these topics, and we'll talk at the same time of the importance, thank you so much, the importance of walayat of Ahlul Bayt, that will be our hope. Because the actions that we're talking about are actions that we really cannot be relying on. Tonight's discussion is about the punishment of the grave. And the punishment of the grave comes in different forms. What you've maybe heard of is the pressure of the grave, the compression of the grave. What is the compression of the grave? What is the pressure of the grave? Is it physical compression? Like, for example, the dirt squeezes that person? Or is it something that is metaphysical? So obviously, because we see people that are buried and you open the graves later on sometimes, you don't see that the earth has actually moved. So understand this is a metaphysical compression. But it is in a way that spirit or that body, there's two opinions here. Some say he has a different type of body in the grave. Some say no, it is that actual body. In the Day of Judgment, we say it's clear that it is actually this body becomes alive again in the Day of Judgment. The body actually, there's a physical ma'at, a bodily ma'at. But in the grave, because the body is there and it's separated, and the Day of Judgment has not started, some say the spirit goes back to the body. Some say no, that there's another type of body similar to his body here. But regardless, that pressure happens. Tonight we're going to be discussing who does it happen to. Is it to everyone? How long will it last for? Who has more of it? What are the factors that bring pressure of the grave? What are some of the factors that remove the pressure of the grave? One of our scholars by the name of Faith Kashani mentions that the pressure of the grave is resembling the pressure that someone had in this world. If a person was jealous and had vices and couldn't stand others, he has pressure, right? So therefore that is shown in the hereafter as having pressure in the grave because he had pressure. If he bothered his family members, and we'll talk about one of the factors of this is having bad akhlaq in the house, and you bother each other, that would cause pressure because you're causing compression of someone else in the household. So that pressure will be shown in the grave. Or for example, if you're arrogant towards someone, any vice you could say, these cause pressure of the grave. But we have traditions that name them, and tonight we're going to go over them. What are the main ones? Some say another factor is that a person's attachment to the world. How attached were they to the dunya? That's compression. You ever see someone that's addicted to drugs, to substances? You take away that drug from them, there's compression, there's pressure on them. Hands shake, they don't know what to do. In the same way, if we are addicted and attached to the dunya, and the spirit comes out of the body, and then that person is now missing the world, attached to the world. He is in pressure. He's being compressed because he loved the dunya. He's attached to the dunya. So the second part is attachment to the world. Remember one thing. We'll talk about this tonight. having lots of income is not dunya. Because Imam Ali alayhi salam had a vast amount of income. He has wells today that he dug up in Medina or by the Red Sea or other places that still today say Bi'ra Ali alayhi salam. He had a vast amount of wealth. So when it came to producing and having income, Imam Ali alayhi salam did not stop and say this is wrong. But when it came to using the world and making use of the dunya, there he would only have oat bread, a dried type of bread that when he was the Khalifa, possibly even more strict on himself, would wrap it or would seal it so people would not get to it. Why do you think people would get to it? Because maybe some would want to soften it up for him. So they wouldn't be able to soften up the bread of Imam Ali. So he had a vast amount of wealth. He produced a lot, but he would use very little. So when we say attachment to the world, doesn't mean that person that goes 5 in the morning. It means that person, when you take away the dunya, his hands start shaking. Or youth today, they say if you take away, there's a study done. And some of us are guilty, maybe I'm guilty of this. They take away the phone from them. And they analyze the reactions of the body to this youth, to this young person. Now his phone is gone. They say it's very similar to the same reactions when you take heroin away from a drug addict. A phone today. So attachments. So maybe pressure of the grave. One of them is removing the phone. He's in the grave. He doesn't know what to do on the phone. He can't go on his social media. And that's enough punishment for him, for example. So this is a reality. It's attached to the second part is attachments to the world. I don't know if you're here when I was talking about the mushahidat and the things that you see when you're dying. One of them are the shayateen and satans that come and show you your attachments and try to snatch away your iman. Say, oh, you like this person, you like that person, you attach to them, just not because of Allah. You just love, you just are attached to them. They say, okay, we'll give this to you. You have to give away your iman. You have to give us your faith. So the more attachments there are, the longer possibly the pressure of the grave is. The more ethical vices we have, the more haram we do, the more sins we do, the more pressure of the grave is. One important topic is this, is the pressure of the grave for everyone? Before I answer it, let me have some water. Let's recite Salat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Might be my last sip, so let me have some more. There are two types of narrations. One type of narrations mentions that there's compression and pressure for all. From the Prophet of Islam, إِنَّهُ لَيْسَ مِن مُؤْمِنٍ إِلَّا وَلَهُ ضَمَّةٌ. There is not a believer it says, a mu'min, a believer, except that he will have pressure. Now this pressure, maybe for one person it will be like a headache. It will end. One person it will last for a very long time. But this group of narrations say it's for everyone. Everyone there will be pressure. What's the purpose of this pressure? The purpose of it is to purify us, get us ready for the hereafter. That is why we said the narration from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam that he is worried about our barzakh. The Imam is worried about for the followers Ahlul Bayt, the followers of Ahlul Bayt for their barzakh. What's going to happen there? Or you see other traditions. Na'udhu billah minha. Seek refuge from it. Ma aqala man yaflitu min daqtatil qabr. Seek refuge for it because very few people are released from the pressure of the grave. So that's one side of traditions that it is for everyone. Hopefully I mentioned these traditions, you keep coming inshallah to the rest of the programs inshallah. The second type of tradition, so you can come to the programs, is that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam was asked by Abu Basir a question. And that is about, what happens in the grave. And the Imam mentions after questioning is done, Man Rabbuk, Man Nabiyyuk, Man Imamuk. After the questioning is done, they asked the Imam, what happens next, basically. And the Imam says, a door of heaven will open. A door of heaven. Then he asks very clearly, Abu Basir, he says, what about the grave? What about the pressure of the grave? What about the compression of the grave? And the Imam in tradition answers, Hayhata ma ala al-mu'minin minha shay. No, this is not for the believers. There's nothing for the believers of compression of the grave. So how can we put these traditions together? One says everyone has it, one says the believer does not. We understand there's different stages of Iman. If a person is so clear, you could say, clean, is so pure, they don't have any spiritual vices. They're never jealous. They never have that hatred for normal believers. They never bother anyone. They do their salat, at the correct time. They do it right. For them, there will not be pressure of the grave. This we understand. A true believer. But anyone else, even if they believe in the Walaya and the Ahlul Bayt, there will be pressure for them. So it's up to us. Remember, whatever we cause in this world, we'll see it in the hereafter. What factors bring pressure of the grave? There's an interesting tradition that 1/3 of the pressure of the grave comes from what? One sin. The tradition says 1/3 of the pressure of the grave is a result of this. What do you think? One sin is really bad. Let me keep drinking water, inshallah. Let's do another salawat ala Muhammad. That is ghaiba, backbiting, the tradition says. 1/3. Maybe one of the reasons for this, it's so harmful. Maybe the other reason is people take it so lightly and it's so prevalent. Other types of sin we say is very horrible. Nobody would do that, for example. But ghaibat we do very easily. There are different definitions of backbiting. But one of the definitions is this, is that you reveal one of the uyub, al-mastur, al-aib, al-mastur, a hidden fault, and you reveal it to the people. For example, I have a bad habit. Nobody knows. It's an aib. It's something bad. Nobody knows. You come and you take the microphone in the night of Qadr and tell everyone, look, Sayyid does this or something like that. And you ruin my reputation. You ruin my reputation because I did not want anyone to know this. That is the definition that Ayatollah Sistani has for ghaibat. And I don't want anyone to know. So I don't want them to know. And it's al-aib al-mastur, a hidden fault. If it's not a hidden fault, is it ghaibat still? No. According to him. There was other definitions of ghaibat. But it still can be another type of sin, like ihana. It could be insulting someone. There's other sins that we have. Mocking someone, making fun of someone, having su'udhan to your believer, having a negative opinion about your friend or your believer. But the ghaibat is this, al-aib al-mastur. You know something about them. And maybe you know it because you were their friend. Or maybe you know it because, I don't know, you saw it and no one else saw it. And you don't have an excuse, because sometimes there's places where you have to say it. Like if they ask me for marriage, for example, what do you think of this brother? And I know he's addicted to drugs, for example. I know he's a crooked businessman. And for me to say, no, he's a good brother, marry him. That's not right. Because you asked me. There you have permission as much as needed. You would say, look, this is what the brother is doing. This is what the sister is doing. So there are exceptions of ghaibat. But in general, ghaibat is that hidden fault. Some say, why do you remove, for example, so many years of worship or so many days of worship that are removed? Because you've ruined the reputation which took years to build. Because many times we see in the dua, we'll say this tomorrow night, inshallah, Allah forgives those sins that you don't tell anyone about. Those sins that you have shame and haya and you do not tell him in the tradition. He says, Allah, because of that shame that that person had, will forgive him. Because he didn't want anyone to know. He had a reputation, or he had haya still. Allah forgives. But not that person that sins and tells everyone about their sin and shows it, posts it on social media that they're sinning, for example. That person, no. But that hidden sin, fault, that a person still has haya and shame, Allah will forgive. So when you do ghaibat, you're taking that hidden fault and spreading it everywhere. And you hear this. When you hear bad, ghaibat of someone, how easy it is for others to fall into that sin now. So, oh, he did that? Maybe I should try it or something. So ghaibat is number one on the list, at 1/3, that we have to be very careful about who we talk about, even if they're public figures. The Muslimin, the followers of Ahlul Bayt, alayhimus salam, even if they are public figures, to extent that obviously if everyone knows about it, that's fine. As long as you're not insulting them, as long as you're not belittling them. But everyone knows that, but you have a hidden fault, something about them, and you want to reveal to people. The second thing that is a factor is carelessness about cleanliness and uncleanliness. This goes probably back to someone being in clothes that's najis maybe all the time. They don't care. And this goes back to not being clean. Another thing is a man's mistreatment of his wife or mistreatment of one's family brings pressure of the grave. Has anyone here heard the story of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh? Have you heard of this companion of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh? Sa'd ibn Mu'adh was a companion of Rasulullah, participated in different battles. The earlier battles he participated in. And in the battle of Khandaq, he was injured. And from this injury, he was later on killed. And he died, became shaheed. So the Prophet mentions here that angels, thousands of angels came to the funeral of Sa'd ibn Mu'adh. And if Rasulullah is there, and his mother of Sa'd says to him, congratulations, you have entered heaven. And the Prophet mentions that, in a way, to reject this, that, don't be so sure of things. And he says, right now, Rasulullah is there, right now there's pressure of the grave for him. And the reasoning for this, they say, even though he was a companion, he was in wars, he had a high status. But they say because he mistreated his family members, his family. So because of this, even someone that's in the battlefield will not be able to make up for it. That there will be that pressure of the grave. So this is for us is a wake-up
world
call.
will see it
for
in the
me,
hereafter.
everyone. That I know Shahr Ramadan, a lot of time we were fasting and we were hungry and we're agitated. We might have anxiety. I know it's difficult, but we also try to work on our akhlaq with our family members. Be patient. Be forgiving. The good news about this is that if your wife, if your husband forgives you, then it will be okay. As long as, inshallah, they forgive you for it. There's one of the urafa, they say that they have anxiety. And I know it's difficult, but we try to work on our akhlaq with our family members. Be patient. Be forgiving. The lesson of the story. His wife passed away, and he was at the funeral of his friend, and he witnesses and he sees that when they bury this person, a vicious dog comes in the grave. A vicious dog. And he knew because it was the way that this wife mistreated the husband. And then he informs, it says that, this wife, and she was actually one of those that was not even afraid of death. So if death comes, it's fine, I'm not afraid of death. But now he was mentioning she is panicking in the grave because this vicious dog is coming. We'll talk about tomorrow, inshallah, tajassumul a'mal, meaning that actions manifest themselves, become something. Tajassumul a'mal. So that sin that she did, because sometimes the sins that we do, they become snakes. We'll mention that, inshallah. And they keep biting us in the grave. That's just something that reproduced ourselves. This event, it was a dog. And the husband, he tells her, look, he tells the husband, look, your wife is going to be suffering. And he says, I forgive her. I forgive her. Honestly, he forgave her. And then the dog went away. So if we are forgiving, remember the soul that has rahmah and mercy upon everyone doesn't have compression in this world, isn't bothered all the time in this world. They won't have compassion in the hereafter either, inshallah. So the third thing was the family. The fourth is taking prayers lightly. And we'll look at some of the traditions about this. It's a very famous tradition from Lady Fatima, salawatullah alayha. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajr. And she asks her father about that person that weakens prayer. Asks Rasulullah, a person that weakens prayer or takes prayer lightly. And he mentions that a person has 6 punishments in the dunya. A person that takes prayer lightly. The minimum meaning of this is maybe they don't pray all the time. They take prayer lightly, meaning that sometimes they're on a vacation and it becomes qada. They'll say, I'll make it up later on. They're at somewhere and it's too hard for them because everyone has to look at them. They're on the airplane and they don't pray when they're on the airplane. They don't pray. We have to establish prayers all the time. There's no excuse that we can have that you could say you do not pray. Even if it comes to the worst is by ishara like this, doing ruku' with a sign and doing sujood with a sign, getting wudu and doing this, you'd have to do that. So we are not excused in general, just because we don't feel like praying from praying. So Rasulullah mentions 6 places where someone takes their salat weak and lightly. And what it will do, 6 places in the dunya. And hopefully we become of the musallin, our children become of the musallin. يَرْفَعُ اللَّهُ الْبَرَكَةَ مِنْ عُمْرِهِ. The first. Allah takes barakat from his life. What does that mean? Maybe a shorter life, maybe barakat, blessings from this world. Long, stable blessings of God is removed when he takes prayer lightly. 2, يَرْفَعُ اللَّهُ الْبَرَكَةَ مِنْ رِزْقِهِ. His rizq, his money, he keeps working hard. He thought that, look, if I pray later on, I'll make more money. But there are those that salat does not cause them to forget dhikrullah, of the remembrance of Allah. That business does not allow them to forget Allah. 3, يَمْهُ اللَّهُ عَزَّ وَجَلْ سِيمَاءَ الصَّالِحِينَ. The face of the salihin. You see some people that are pious in our community, you see their faces, it has a pious face. And therefore you see Allah takes away that because they took prayers lightly. Because that prayer, there's nothing more important than prayer. When you take away prayer, that means you took away being an abd of God. When salat is mi'rajul mu'min and can take you to mi'raj, Rasulullah went in mi'raj. This is our mi'raj, is salat. When you choose not to pray on purpose, then what all you're doing is fighting against God. Because we are created for hayya ala khayr al-amal, the best of actions. And you cannot see, if you were ever to think of an act of worship that is better than prayer, more humbling than prayer, more beautiful than prayer, you don't find it in this world. We were created to pray. We were created to worship. And you do not want to pray? So therefore, everything that we revolve, our day should in reality be revolving around salat. and be a preparation for us for salat. لا يرتفع دعاءه إلى السماء. His prayers are not heard. كل عمل يعمله لا يؤجر عليه. His actions will not be accepted. ليس له حظ من دعاء الصالحين. The صالحين, the good people's dua will not be applied for them. That was just 6 effects of taking salat weak in this world. Let's talk about during death. أن يموت ذليلا. He will die in humility. He will die a wretched death. يموت جائعا. He will die thirsty, for example. Hungry. يموت عطشانا. He will die thirsty. And what about the grave? يوكل الله به ملكا يزعجه في قبره. He will have adab in the grave. يضيق عليه قبره. There will be pressure of the grave. تكون الظلمة في قبره. And there will be darkness of the grave. This is salah. But imagine, take the opposite. If a person truly focuses on salah, there will be light in the grave. He'll have the sima of the salihin. He will have a very pious looking face. Allah will not punish him. The angels that come, they won't be the angels that will be, questioning him with thunder, for example, be questioning him, with a smile on their face. So that is about salat. What can we now do? Actually, one more thing that causes a factor, and this is applies to us a lot. One more factor of pressure of the grave is using and wasting Allah's blessings that He has given us. Let's read the narration from the Prophet of Islam. ضغطة القبر للمؤمن كفارة لما كان منه من تضييع النعم. Wasting, تضييع means to waste. There's tabdhir and there's israf. Does anyone know the difference between these two? Because sometimes we don't know the difference. There's tabdhir and there's israf. Does anyone know the difference? Israf means to use. But I use a lot. And I use higher than my status. For example, I have a normal income, but next time you see me in the night of Qadr, you see me with a nice Rolex watch with diamonds, and you say, MashaAllah, and it's real. I don't know how much one of those costs. Let's just say it costs a lot of money with diamonds. You say, MashaAllah, Sayyid, how did you get that? And anyways, I saved up and I got a nice Rolex. And you say, whoa, did I waste my money? I didn't throw it on the ground and set it on fire. But I used it, but I used too much. I used it too much on myself. That's called israf. This is an example that has khums. Did you know that? If you do israf, that's not your ma'una anymore. That's not part of your household expenditures. Your normal household expenditures are ma'una, are taken away from your income. But if you spend too much more than your status, and that status is up to you to decide. If I do that and I try to give that example of, say, diamond, Rolex with diamonds, that's a clear example for me. Maybe for another person, it's not. So don't say, if you see someone have it, you say, oh, you're doing haram. No. For someone like me. So this is israf. I'm not wasting it. It's still there. Maybe I'll sell it and make money, actually. I'm not wasting money. And I think that's how watches are. Maybe sometimes they make money. But tabdhir means to throw away. Tabdhir is to throw away. So that means there's something that is actually good food. And this happens, unfortunately, a lot of times. And I asked the office about this. I said, some cultures, they throw away more. Just because they throw away more, does that mean it's allowed? And the office of Ayatul Sistani mentioned that they still know it's wasting. If they still consider this wasting, then that's haram, that's tabdhir. If it's still considered wasting. So therefore, wasting, sometimes it's a little bit, and Orf would see, oh, that's normal, that's muta'arif, that's normal, no one's going to eat that or whatever. But sometimes it's a lot of food. And one of the tricks I usually try to do, I just leave it, you can leave it in the fridge, and let it kind of spoil. Then there's nothing else. It's spoiled now, you can dump it all, in the trash later on. Because you gave a chance to eat it at least. Or if there's animals that you have. That's one of the good things about those that have chickens and those that have animals. They don't have pressure of the grave because they always give it to them. There's there's a very good benefit to them. So wasting God's ni'mah that He has given us. That's another thing that would give us pressure. Why? Because look at it, you put pressure. That person that is wasting God's ni'mah, throwing away, in reality is giving pressure to himself because he's taking God's favor and just throwing it away. Let's talk about some of the factors that remove pressure of the grave, and we'll end, inshallah, tonight. Some of the factors that remove the pressure of the grave. Let's talk positive. One is sadaqah for the mayyit. One is salat of wahsha or laylatul dafn. When a person passes away, do that salat for them. The angels come and they open and expand the grave for them. Try to make sure you do it. You make the salat for others, inshallah, they'll do it for you. They say, I'm not sure. I heard that Ayatollah Bahjat used to do this every night. Just in general, whoever died tonight, I do it. Whoever died. So then the hereafter, that person can help Ayatollah Bahjat out. He was so smart and clever and pious that whoever. So maybe if he had a person that passed away when he was alive, then he might have done salat mayyit for them. As I said, the mu'mineen, true believers, they're very large and they're very generous when it comes to their, hospitality and their treatment of others and the way they make dua. Salatul layl, another factor that removes the pressure of the grave. Reciting Quran, especially certain surahs like Al-Mulk, for example, Takathur. Some of these surahs of Quran remove. Suratul Yasin, for example. Whoever, when you go to a grave and recite Surah Yasin, there's no pressure then when you're reciting for the entire grave, when you're reciting Surah Yasin. Giving sadaqah for that person. And this is another important act in Shahr Ramadan, that you make iftar, you have iftar, you support the center, you're helping out in iftar. Make sure you have the intention for your marhumin. Do you have to necessarily mention them? No. It's good to mention them if you want. But you're making your intention, this is for this person, and Allah accepts, inshallah. So make sure your marhumin. I'm going to give a very nice hadith here about how important it is to help those that have passed away. Do you like gifts in this world? Everyone likes gifts. All the children here are waiting for Eid al-Fitr so they can get gifts for their parents. And hopefully the kids are doing salat, are doing a little bit of fasting as much as they can, are worshipping, and inshallah their parents will give them a prize. إِنَّ الْمَيِّتَ لِيَفْرَحُ بِالتَّرَحُّمْ عَلَيْهِ وَالِاسْتِغْفَارُ اللَّهِ. The mayyit, the dead person, loves when someone has rahmah upon them, when someone does istighfar for them, say, Allah forgive them, for example. كَمَا يَفْرَحُ الْحَيِّ بِالْهَدِيَّةِ. Just like the people in this world get happy when they get gifts, they get gifts and they say, Allah, they have done rahmah for me. They have, forgiveness for me. So another action is the khairat, inshallah, for those that have passed away. There's other adab, certain types of, wood that's used, so pouring water. These are, adab when that person has passed away. But you see, one of the most important things we have is the love of Ahlul Bayt, alayhimus salam. And we'll end with this. The love of Ahlul Bayt, the Prophet and his family, because the first people we will see are them, Rasulullah and Imam Ali. How important is this love? I said, and I say it again, we asked about 5 main things in the grave. Our salat, hajj, sawm, zakat, for example. And walayat. And walayat comes, if there's any insufficiencies, we'll make sure those insufficiencies are poor. Hubbi wa hubba ahl bayti are filled. Hubbu wa hubba ahl bayti nafi'un fi sab'ati mawatan. And one of them is, in the wafat, when you pass away, our love is beneficial for them. Wa fil qabr And when we are in the grave, the love of Ahlul Bayt will be beneficial. وعند النشور وعند الكتاب وعند الحساب وعند الميزان وعند الصراط. All these stages and marahil of the hereafter, the love of the Prophet and his family are beneficial. Let's dim the lights. And remember Imam Ali alayhi salam. And hopefully Imam Ali alayhi salam will come to help us. Ya Allah, we don't have much optimism when it comes to our actions. I don't know if you're like me. Even after the nights of Qadr, I still feel like I don't have much, Allah. I feel like if it's not for your mercy, if it's not for the help of Imam Ali alayhi salam, of Rasulullah, I don't have much. Tonight, brothers and sisters, night like this, hands were buried, that those hands would caress the orphans, and those hands would come and very discreetly bring food and provisions to the house of the orphans. Those hands are not here anymore. Those are the hands of Ali ibn Abi Talib. The world will not see such hands anymore. Feet that would stand for 1,000 units of prayer. Feet that Imam Ali would stand and worship Allah as the Amir of Mu'mineen, but yet would not allow anyone to distract him from his tahajjud and worship. Such feet will be buried, will be in the dirt tonight. How much the world, such feet that Rasulullah, remember that tradition I said yesterday? That Rasulullah mentioned, nobody will walk this earth better than Ali after me. Nobody will walk this earth better than him. Those feet that Imam Ali walked on this earth are now going to be buried. When the ulama was saying that Imam Ali alayhi salam, you know, when you see somebody that is suffering a lot in this world, when someone is, has a lot of hardship in this world, they say, he became at ease. Some say Imam Ali, when he was martyred by Ibn Muljam, he became at ease because he was suffering so much in this world. To see the attack on his family, to be set aside by society, and then to have the dhulm and oppression happen to him during his life. He comes at ease now. Ali is now at calmness, at ease, is getting his reward. Such eyes, like the eyes of Imam Ali, will be buried in the ground tonight. Eyes that were full of crying for Allah, in munajat of Imam Ali, when he would cry to Allah and mention that I am faqir, that Allah, you're ghani, that I do not have knowledge when it comes to Allah. Yes, to makhlooq, you can ask anything you want from me. But when it comes to God, I know nothing. I am ignorant. Allah knows everything. Such eyes will be buried in the dirt tonight. And the heart of Ali ibn Abi Talib, the heart that was full of compassion and rifq, even to his companion. This heart that was full of tawheed shuhudi, of witnessing Allah. When asked, do you see your Lord? Imam Ali mentions that, how do I worship a Lord that I do not see? I see him basically with my heart. This heart that would see Allah is now buried in the dirt. The night that they killed Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, and they struck him, he had no fear. He had no concerns. Prophet Muhammad told him that he would be killed in Shahr Ramadan. He didn't worry about who it was going to be, what's going to happen. But he had one question. He said, will my deen be salam at that day? Will my deen be intact that day? So when Ibn Muljam strikes him, imagine how much of a coward this Ibn Muljam is. To hide behind, hide and try to assassinate, because you cannot fight against Imam Ali one-on-one. You have to hide there like a wretched person and wait in the masjid of God. Masjid is not a place of assassination, killing. And wait while Ali is in sajda so he cannot see you, and to come from behind. At such a time when nobody expects to be hit. There's no expectations to be hit in salat. at that time in the morning, at that place. You never see that it mentions Ali doesn't complain or scream or yell, because that's a normal human reaction, is to cry and scream because it hurts, it's painful, and you're surprised. Yet you see Ali say dhikr of Allah. This is why he's Abu al-Ajai. Ya Ali, what did you do? How did you live this world when you were hit on the head which killed you? You never complained. You just did the dhikr of Allah. Some say he said, Bismillah wa billah wa ala millati Rasulillah, and he fell on the ground. They say this is the same dua that Imam Hussein alayhi salam, his son, had when he fell off the horse. When they finally hit Imam Hussein so many times and he fell off his horse, Bismillah wa billah wa ala millati Rasulullah. But brothers and sisters, lovers of Imam Ali alayhi salam, let me tell you one difference between Imam Ali and Imam Hussein. Imam Ali alayhi salam, when he was struck on the head, he was looking at the sky, they said. He was remembering Allah. But in Ziyarat Nahiya, when Imam Hussein alayhi salam is his last moments, his hand is opening and closing, his faculties are fading. His eyes were towards his tents. His eyes were towards his family, because Imam Ali alayhi salam's family was safe, but Imam Hussein's family was not safe. La yawm ka yawmika ya Aba Abdullah. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Ya Allah, because of the madhlumiyat of Ali ibn Abi Talib, because of the greatness of Ali ibn Abi Talib, because of the kindness of Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ali, you were kind to your asir and captive. Be kind to us, inshallah. Grab our hand. Grab our children's hand, inshallah. Those that have passed away from them, inshallah, grab their hand and give them heaven. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi. You are Qasimul Nar wal Jannah. You are the separator of heaven and hell. Inshallah, with Allah's will, you will give our marhumeen heaven, inshallah. Ya Allah, forgive our sins. Remove from us pressure of the grave. Give us expansion of the grave. Make our graves beautiful. Rawdatun min riyad al-Jannah. Give light, inshallah, to our graves and our marhumeen's grave and those family members and friends of ours in this community that have passed away. Ya Allah, give us knowledge, give us ibadah, give us worship. Allah, prepare us for the 23rd of Shahr Ramadan. Expedite the return of the Imam of the age, our living Imam, inshallah. Make him satisfied with us. Bless our actions through him, inshallah. And for his return, please recite Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Please join me for dua al-hujjah. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.